You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many
Hello everybody, how are you doing? This is the Big Vito brand coming to you live, baby, live with another edition of Getting Color. This is Big Vito LaGrasso, and of course we got the co-host with the most, David Virtue Stalwart. David, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, pretty good, man. I'm glad we're doing this because I was watching the Grammys. Nobody can perform anymore. Nobody can sing. It sounds like crap. Or is that just me?
No, it's probably just, the overall opinion of most people in America who are bored on a Sunday night. But unlike us, we have important business to do. Getting Color on the BigVitoBrand.com. Press the purple button because we need your support. I hope everybody is doing good. I hope everybody's having a great night. And David, I have a subject that I hope you can help me with tonight. And this subject is pretty touching to me and something that it sticks to me sometimes. And the subject tonight is wrestlers who pass away who never get credit.
Yeah.
All right.
And go for it, man. I think I know where you're going with this. And there's a lot of them too where this happens.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about this because there was a wrestler who passed away today. His name was Salvatore Bellomo. Did you know of Salvatore Bellomo?
Well, I knew he was in World Wrestling Federation in the 80s. Didn't win too many matches on TV, and I also know he was in ECW. I don't know, was it Extreme Championship Wrestling yet, or was it still the Easter, the promotion it was before it turned to that? Because I remember him facing Snuka in the first title match.
It was Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, so I do know who he is, but I'm gonna tell you flat out, he's one of the guys that didn't get pushed heavily on the mainstream. So I don't know him as well as I do like a Kurt Hennig or a Ravishing Rick Rude, and I feel guilty a little bit when this kind of stuff happens because I know who they are, but because they weren't big stars, I have to do more research on them than if one of the big names passed away, and I feel guilty. Should I?
Now, did you know that he was a big star overseas in Germany, Australia, and other great countries where he was a big name in the industry?
I did, and I thought it was over in Italy. It wasn't he Italian too? Did he do some stuff over there? Because
he wasn't known for his Italian gimmick. He did other characters like a Greek god.
And I feel like if his era where where he came through the business, we didn't have the social media era. So if the social media era of today was back then, I bet you we'd all know about him. And that's kind of sad. You know what I mean? Because today, wrestling fans know about pretty much every independent talent there is because of the internet. So,
well, also, do you know that when people, like I grew up in New York and we watched WOR, the only wrestling we knew was WWF. Now, when you talk about different wrestling, I never heard of USWA wrestling until I was about to go over there to wrestle. And then when I did go over there, that's in Memphis, Tennessee. When I did go over there, you saw a whole brand of wrestling that you never knew. Same thing with going to Puerto Rico. Never knew there was any greats in Puerto Rico. Every country, every place you went had their own stars, had their own, continent of wrestling. And it just goes to show how small wrestling fans think in a big, broad circle because they only know one brand. They only know the WWF. And that's until Japan came to America and you could be able to watch Japanese wrestling. And then you were able to watch other kind of brands of wrestling. It's very sad. And what people don't understand is guys have made a living wrestling overseas that you never heard of that are great wrestlers.
Yeah, and I agree. And the thing is, today we're lucky. You hear about more of these no-name wrestlers because the reach of the internet. Back then, there's gonna be wrestlers that probably pass away from overseas that I've never really been privy to. You've worked over there, and I'm gonna find out this way, and then I'm gonna have to go on Wikipedia and Google and find out, well, what did this guy do exactly? What was his career? So it just sucks, but to me, I think it's the time I grew up in. You know, when I was a kid in the '80s, WWF was what I knew, right? It was on TV everywhere. We didn't have the internet. I wasn't in the business. I was a kid. I was a fan growing up. So it does suck when this kind of thing happens. But the good thing is there are people out there like you and other people that know what these performers did. So there's ways to educate yourself on their career. And at least then somebody like me can kind of remember. You know, it just, again, there's so many. The world's a big place, Vito, right? And I'm sure there's wrestlers out there you've probably never even heard of, and you've been in the business. It just sucks that we have to find out after they pass away, and then this is how we bring up discussion. I'm a firm believer. I like to celebrate people while they're alive.
Now, there was a wrestler by the name of the Blue Blazer. Now, I don't know if people remember that gentleman. That Blue Blazer used to be known as Owen Hart. And for those who don't know, he spent a good portion of his career in Germany wrestling for Otto Wanz. Did you know that, David?
No. I mean, I know Owen was over in Japan. I do know that, and he obviously came from Canada. So that, and I'm a big Owen Hart guy. Some of my buddies probably knew that. So that's a good piece of information. I did not know. Was he over there for how many, a year or two?
He was there for a while, wrestling. Yeah. But you talk about the great Otto Wanz, who ran Germany, and if you wanted to go anywhere there to wrestle, like Australia, Germany, Europe, you went to Otto Wanz and you honed your skills. They made you live in a trailer outside the stadium, and you were in the wrestling business.
So let me ask you this. Why does it seem like, at least in Europe today, in 2019, that besides, WWE is doing this NXT UK thing, how come it doesn't seem like European wrestling's big? We just don't hear about it. It's United States, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Japan. Why does it seem like Europe is forgotten in 2019 for wrestling, for the most part? Or is it just me?
No, I think that it's just, just the way wrestling had evolved, and it just evolves where you don't hear about, European wrestling. And there are great wrestlers who come from there. You remember, I don't know if you know of a gentleman by the name of Tony St. Clair.
Vaguely. I probably have seen him work in a match on video clips somewhere. Gosh, that sounds familiar. Where did he wrestle at over here? Did he ever come over here, or was he strictly over in Europe?
Maybe very rarely he wrestled here, but in Japan and in Germany, he's a very famous wrestler, wrestled for many years, made a living, and you wouldn't know unless you dug into the archives or wrestled against him to actually know who this gentleman is.
And I almost bet I don't even think Meltzer probably knows who every single wrestler in the world ever was. I bet you could stump him on some of these people, Vito. The almighty Dave Meltzer, I bet you doesn't even know some of these workers.
Oh boy, Mel, what's going on? We're going to give you a shout out tonight. How's it going? Live baby, live on the Big Vito brand. Shout out to the Mel. But anyway, when you talk about something like that, when I was in Hanover, Germany, and I was wrestling for European Championship Wrestling, and you wrestled in the Schützenplatz. It's a wrestling tent. That's what it's called. It's called the German Ironman Tournament in Hanover, Germany. And I was there, and I got to see German wrestling history because they had an old timers night. I saw some of the greatest gimmicks that you ever came, and I used to look and I was like, wow, I said, I never knew these guys existed. We talk about fan favorites and guys wrestling for 20 years. There was a man, I can't remember his name. He was probably one of the biggest, naturally biggest men I've ever seen. Over 300 pounds, probably 6'6". Just a huge man. You're not talking about steroids. You're not talking about it, but a huge man. And I asked, I said, that guy never went. I said, that guy should have been in the WWE. I said, why? He said he never got a chance. And he's just here, and he's one of the all-time greats here.
Now, how could somebody like that never get a chance? I mean, back then, don't you think that WWE or F at the time, Vince they were scouting or had contacts to say, hey, this guy over in this country, he could be a star? Or do you think that at the time it was just hard to get that information back to Vince McMahon? Or even his dad? Like, you knew how wrestling was in the Northeast, right? WWF, that was the New York territory. It was Vince Sr. So to me, it's shocking that they didn't get some of these guys from over there.
Well, remember, not everybody wrestles in the WWF, and not everybody goes to the WWE. And it is shocking to know this because you would think that's everybody's goal. And then you realize it's not everybody's goal in life, and they're happy wrestling at home, being in their own country, doing their own thing.
Let me ask you this. So you've wrestled in other countries, and I think we've talked about this before when you did the No DQ shows. And I think I know the answer, but I got to ask you again. Where did you get the biggest pop overseas at any country you wrestled in? And I think I know what it is, but I wanted to ask you again.
Well,
and why? Like, you know what I mean?
Pop or the biggest reaction? I mean, in every country I went to, Germany, I got a good reaction. You know, wrestling in Puerto Rico for years, Dominican Republic. I would have to tell you, going to Nepal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
For a place that never had wrestling, and I was the first American wrestler over there. And you talk about making an impact on those people for the first time seeing live wrestling and wanting to kill you because you hurt one of their heroes and you made these people believe. I mean, that's how real it is. That's how relevant it is in other countries. People believe heart and soul what you're doing and how they look at you. And you got to take it for what it's worth. It's really something else.
So it got pretty hostile in Nepal. Do you remember what shows at Shea Stadium? Was it WWF that had some hostile crowds there, or the heels were so hated because kayfabe was real back then. They were so hated they literally had to have police officers. The ones they did at the baseball stadium. I'm trying to think what wrestlers literally had to have police officers.
WWF. It was the Bruno Sabisco feud, Shea Stadium, 1977, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's it. Wow, and when you were in Nepal, did you fear at all for your safety with that environment, that hostility?
I wouldn't say feared. I kind of got pissed. I wouldn't say feared.
Okay.
Kind of like I was excited I got that kind of crowd reaction. I was nervous because, I said, okay, it's 5,000 I escaped. Excuse me, 25,000. 25,000 when I went back to the next show. And I was like, all right, I tested fate. And then when I went back the next year and I said, I'm going back. And people said, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I have unfinished business. And I made a point to shut those people up when I won the title. And you talk about a whole country shutting down and booing their hero. And for him to get ridiculed in the paper and just demolished, talk about, how he let the country down. And here I am in the U.S. Embassy taking pictures with the championship belt. And people took it to heart. And people asked me, how could an American wrestler come here and win this belt? I said, I didn't come here to lose.
Dude, that reminds me of Rocky IV, when Rocky went over there into Russia and beat Drago. And if you watch, I don't know if have you seen the newest Creed 2?
Yeah.
Or no, okay. So we're past the spoiler alert. They had such interesting character development in that movie with the older Drago and his son, and the way that they made Russia disown them because Drago lost to Rocky in the 80s. I feel like you did the same thing for wrestling. That's what I was getting out of that story. And that's countries banishing you more or less, and wrestling's a work. That's just crazy that happens overseas like that. But to them, it's real, right? To some of those countries,
wrestling affects lives, everyday lives. And if you went and looked at some of the gimmicks, or you had to go live in those eras, in those time slots, it would make you look at wrestling in a whole different light.
Did you wrestle on that show in Spain? Did you ever wrestle a show in Spain? Were you on that show with Warrior?
Yeah.
Warrior's last match, it was Warrior versus Orlando Jordan, right?
I was there.
How was that environment? And of course, he main evented, correct? With Orlando Jordan?
It was the Evolution Wrestling. And I was on the card. I was wrestling for the company for a while. They got Ultimate Warrior to make a comeback. And, drew 15,000 people. And it was a great time for him to come down. But the one thing that happened is when you take off that long, 15 years, you don't step in a ring, you don't step back in the ring, and you don't recapture your glory. And he found that out that night, and he could only last 2 minutes, and Orlando Jordan carried him almost 20 minutes. And, I remember standing by the curtain. Rikishi says, Vito, get ready to run out there because this is going to tank. And I'm ready, and I'm waiting to run out there to cause like a disturbance or something. And that was a night like that I will never forget. And you talk about a disappointment because you're expecting to see this great Ultimate Warrior come for all these European people. And here we are, we're expecting to see the Ultimate Warrior, even as fans in the U.S., and it didn't materialize, and it was something totally different and shocking, disappointing.
Yeah, and of course, we learned later on he did have a heart condition, so who knows at that stage of his life how that made him gassed. I mean, he probably ran to the ring and was gassed before it even started, but I always thought you were at that show. I remember, and again, 15,000 people, Vito, just on a name power from an old legend. And of course, so what exactly, and I'm bringing this up, not to go off script here, what exactly is All Elite Wrestling changing? So we know Omega signed this week. We knew that was going to happen. I keep hearing this changing the world. Wrestling's done it all, Vito. Every promotion's done everything you can possibly think of. Now, is changing the world the wrestlers running the promotion? Because I don't think that's going to work. It boggles my mind when I hear that. And you tell me you were in Spain with 15,000 people.
Going for the shock value and for what the people, what else could you say when all these other wrestling companies have come and gone and nobody has stayed around and opened the door to be actually a mainstay? TNA did it for years, but they were losing a losing business that just didn't never materialize because they were overwhelmed. Now you have a bunch of guys who, Kenny Omega, from his fame comes from being in Japan. All the rest of the guys come from being on the indie scene. Then you have one name main guy, Chris Jericho, who is the face of the company basically, trying to make an impact and draw a different type of crowd. They want the indie crowd to be involved. They're not going for the worldwide. What I mean by that is when you look at main TV wrestling, WWE, WCW, ECW. When you talk about indie wrestling, you talk about all these other promotions that don't have major TV coverage, but they have word-of-mouth, world-renowned fame getting together and trying to make a wrestling company. That's going to change the world.
Yeah, and I just don't. I mean, to me, don't keep saying you're going to change the world, and that's what bothers me. I get it; it's their catchphrase. That's what they're getting those diehard fans to grab onto. But I don't think saying it over and over again means you're doing it. Just do it. Don't say change the world. Do it. Whatever they have, they're going to formulate with this product. Do it. I'm just sick of hearing it all the time and having these fans. Right now, Vito, it's a T-shirt company, right? People have told me it's a T-shirt company. Until they have shows and TV and this and that, they're just selling merchandise. So I don't know, man. It irks me because it's a week long and I get in these long debates.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, and this just goes for individuals now, okay? Wrestling is like a family. And once you get to be in the business and you get to be part of a company, that's your family. When you're done wrestling for your company, you never stop being family. You just go on to a different territory and you wrestle. And I guess what really is heartbreaking and really touches the heart is you never stay in touch and you never, stay tuned. I'll give you an example. Like, I'll give you Brian Christopher, who passed away, okay? I wrestled with Brian Christopher in 1995. I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I've seen Brian come up through the WWE, know his father. Do you think that I stayed on the phone with Brian Christopher all those years? No. It was Del Rios, Wolfie D, Jamie, Reggie B. Fine, a couple other guys in the industry from that era. But you talk about picking up a conversation and acting like you just saw the guy yesterday and being able to talk for 20, 30, 40 minutes. That's real. That's camaraderie. That's being a brother. You know what I mean? And I wish there was more of that instead of waiting for someone to pass and then writing something on Facebook. And a lot of guys don't give guys credit for what they've accomplished in the business, because today, if you give somebody credit, it's like you're stealing their spot or stealing thunder or you're losing credibility. I wish that everybody would support everybody out there, but sometimes that just doesn't happen.
Is there anyone that's still alive that you've worked with, you had that camaraderie with, that you'd like to, that you'd either have them reach out to you, you'd reach out to them, and I, some of these people are still working, right? So they're traveling. It's hard just to meet up with someone, but like, is there anybody out there you'd be like, hey, dude, you in Florida? Next time you're in Florida, let's hang out. Like, there's got to be somebody that you don't want to have on your news feed one day if they passed away and then you never got the last chance to talk with them. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot.
Well, here, I'll give you something. Like, me and Johnny the Bull still buddies, and we're still friends all these years. And we tagged in WCW, and I don't talk to John all the time. I probably haven't talked to John in 6, 7, 8 months. But if I call John at a drop of a dime, he'd pick up my call. Hey, Vito, what's going on? Is something wrong? Or, what's happening? And we'd pick up and start talking. Same thing with me and Nunzio or Angel or the Baldies. Or, just about DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. If I called, and I left a message, he would call me back. Rob Van Dam, who I don't speak to on the phone but answers my tweets. If I picked up and called, or Val Venus, who's one of my buddies. If I call, then they know if I call 9 times out of 10, they'll pick up my phone call, and we'll stay on and say, Vito, what's going on? And chat for a while and catch up, and it's just a shame that guys don't stick together like that and then only get the recognition when they pass away. I wish there was a segment or a plateau or a forum where guys from the past can get the recognition they need before they pass. But you can't predict the future. And I guess that's what's upsetting. You understand?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and that's what's cool about doing these indie shows at the small level, because you'll see guys like that you haven't heard of on the main stage for a while get these gigs, and that's how you get to meet them and interact with them and kind of ask them the questions. Hey, how is it for you? What are you glad you chose this career, this life? And I try to pick everybody's brain. You know what I mean? Everybody says, if you travel with a wrestling company, it's the car rides where you learn the most. Talking to the people that have done it, getting that information. And if there's one thing, Vito, I could ever do, it would be more of those car rides with people that have done it, just to hear the stories, just to know, wow. Because I would feel like, oh, I'm just a fan trying to play a wrestler part-time or a manager like Bobby Heenan. But in reality, I'm one of those people, Vito, I want to learn. I want to learn every little aspect that I can. So at least at the end, if I don't ever do what you did, but I just did what I did, I could at least say, well, I got to meet a lot of people and I heard their stories. And you know what? I wish I could have been like them, but just meeting them and trying to do this thing. I don't know if you saw that video of me. I did a small indie show, small match around here back in November, and the whole thing was to get. It was a kid's dream that had cerebral palsy to be a referee, right? So I played the manager guy, right? Not supposed to go and work a match. Well, I got tricked into this match against a bigger guy. Total Bobby Heenan type stuff, like when the Warrior put the weasel suit on him. And all I remember, we did exactly what we needed to. They put us on last, Vito, which I was feeling so crappy. I'm backstage with all these workers, all these wrestlers. They put us on last, right? And I'm thinking, man, no, not us. Put us in the middle. Put us on at intermission. But I just kind of did my thing, went out there, engaged the crowd, and that kid, Alex the Kid, got to count 3. And that was his dream, Vito. And that's the type of stuff, you know what I mean? I didn't ask for that. They just put us in that spot. And to me, it was for him. Have you ever had any moments like that where, like I'm sure it's always about you got to worry about yourself. Let me get Big Vito over. Vito, Vito, Vito. Were you ever in a spot where you worried about somebody else, their moment? And I know it's a bigger stage than me, but I just wanted to use mine as an example because I'm interested to hear on a bigger stage, did you have that moment that you put your ego aside? Because all wrestlers have to have it at some point to get that other person over.
I guess the one time you could say I ran out there and worried about getting somebody over is when we wrestled for a company in Canada, and Angel had won the heavyweight title, Angel of the Baldies, and he was standing out there, and people he beat, I forget who he beat that night. It was a shock that he won, and I forget who he beat. He's standing out there, and the crowd wasn't receptive. He was sinking. And I ran out there and I gave him a hug. You know, I just remember me and Angel go back a long time, and I felt happy for him. When I went out there, because I went out there, the crowd received it, and that's when they gave him. It was like an endorsement that somebody believed it wasn't like something stupid, and it was his moment, something he wanted, and I made sure he had his moment. Even though it turned into a great storyline, that his buddy, his longtime friend, his tag team partner, his travel buddy, his real life friend, would turn on him because nobody knew I was going back to Canada. And probably people only in Canada remember this. It was the tour where the Canadian promoter didn't pay the guys, didn't get their hotels, didn't get them rides to the airport, didn't get nothing. And it was the return tour. And here I am. The guy flew me in unannounced. I'm sitting at the hotel. I asked him if he can get me something to eat because I hadn't eaten. Sends me food. And I go into the thing where everybody thought I was Raven with the leather jacket and the helmet. And I did the exact Raven thing, sit in the corner, do the whole thing, baseball, you know, like everything. And then I take out Angel, And then I go to take off the helmet, and the shock and the friggin' people erupted, and they chanted ECW, and they couldn't believe it was me. And I cursed them out. You son of a bitch. You friggin' think you forget me. I'm the one who made you, and then you didn't even get me booked over here. You
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
That never happened. And then we waited for the rest of the night. And here comes the promoter. He disappears for the second show. Doesn't pay nobody. Doesn't get nobody rides home. I get out there on the mic and I stop the show and say, guys, can't do this anymore. Listen, we're in a little bit of a trouble, and nobody here has rides home. Everybody's here stranded. A lot of guys didn't get paid. Can you, the fans, get us home? And I can't tell you the true love of wrestling. And here's a horrible story. It turned out good, where everybody got a ride home, all because we all cared for each other. It didn't matter about the angle. It didn't matter about, what was going on. At that point, we were so far away from home, we had a chance not to get over the border. And that's real life, real talk. And I remember calling my fiance at the time, my wife. I said, listen, I'm stranded out here. So I don't know if I'm getting back. She was, what do you mean? I said, the promoter skipped town. He said, but you were just talking to him. I said, he skipped out. He didn't pay the boys. And he had the money, and he had the shows. He just didn't pay them.
Yeah, I can't stand that when they get it to that level and they do it and screw everybody over. We've seen that around here. Nothing I've been involved with, but I've heard about it and seen it. Too many carnies trying to do it, and that's a shame. But people messaged me on Twitter, Vito. They wanted to know. They're like, ask Vito, what type of real life moment he had where it just didn't matter anymore. Right there in the ring, it was about the people that you were against, and you didn't care about yourself and your character. And I don't. Did you say that story before? Sounds familiar, but if you didn't, I'm glad I
heard that story before. We talk about real life, real people, and if you pick up, and people still message me on Facebook about that situation. They just say, hey, Vito, you remember me? I'm the guy from the Canada show with the guys you didn't pay. Just want to check in and say hello. How's everything? And there was people stepping up to help you out in life, and these are people who are total strangers that still talk to you. They still give you recognition. And you know what? I give those people recognition because they stepped up as human beings and made sure all us wrestlers got home. It's appreciated.
Yep. I mean, shoot. If I was there, I would have made you sign into Uber, but I'm just kidding. They didn't have Uber back then.
I want to get on to wrestling news, okay? Now, I know you're up pretty much on the current product and everything. What do you think about Dean Ambrose getting jobbed out and being treated like crap by the WWE, all because he wants to leave and not re-sign? Probably hindsight says he's going to sign with the Elite Wrestling. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. So he obviously told them he's not re-signing. And at first, Vito, and we talked about this, I'm sitting there thinking, work, work, work. Well, the way it's looking now, no. I mean, this is legit. And the fact that they're going to put him against Nia Jax. Now, granted, the news that I know, it's only going to be at a house show right now. But if you're jobbing, and I assume that's what they're going to do, to Nia Jax on your way out, I feel like Vince just holds grudges for people that don't want to work for him. Even if Dean wanted to go and just retire for a couple of years and not even do wrestling, which he should have the right to do. And heck, if you don't want to sign your extension, and you want to work for someone else, you should have the right to do that too. Vince McMahon just loves tormenting and torturing these people until the very bitter end. And I think of Jeff Jarrett, and I don't know why, because he went against China. Now, China is head and shoulders above Nia Jax. I'm sorry if any Nia Jax fans are out there. China was a talent, the ninth wonder of the world. That wasn't just a moniker. That's the truth. So Jeff Jarrett getting booked to job to her, I think, is more legitimate than what's happening with Ambrose and Nia Jax. So that looks like, to me, Ambrose is being punished for leaving the company or for not wanting to work there anymore. But, Jeff might have been on his way out, but they really wanted to get Chyna over. Chyna was in DX. She was a star during the hottest time in wrestling. So it's different, but I just think of what Jarrett had to go through, and then his contract expired and this and that. And I see Ambrose, but Vito, it's different time. Ambrose is completely getting the shaft. And he's professional, so he's going to go through with it,
Hey, listen, everybody's business. Jeff Jarrett is wrestling business. He grew up in the business. He knows his business.
Yeah.
But there's the but.
Yep.
Like I said for years and years and years and years, you can leave Vince McMahon. When you come back, he will get his revenge. And what is he doing to Jeff Jarrett now? He is jobbing the shit out of him and making him put these guys over, take a guitar shot, and putting him on in different places, spots.
Yep.
Now, okay, when you get older, your body betrays you, and if you don't go to the gym, it doesn't look right. You try to wear a shirt, cover yourself. Shirt falls off, rips off, and there you out there in the middle of everybody, and you don't look like the old Jeff Jarrett, or you don't look like the old so-and-so. And part of the humiliation for Vince on that factor. Now, I'm not crapping on Vince McMahon. I'm just talking about what is real in wrestling. Like you said, you don't want to wrestle for Vince McMahon. You don't want to wrestle for the WWE. There are repercussions. Repercussions are he will let you go, but he doesn't forget. And when you come back, he will get you. He will get his revenge. It's just not anything but strictly business related. Not personal. It's just wrestling business.
So do you think he's getting Ambrose ahead of time before he leaves and comes back? He's getting him now on the way out with Nia Jax?
Well, you ever say you can't redo something? And I'm pretty accurate on what I see in the booking and everything. They said you can never redo the Montreal Screwjob, or you can never redo certain great highlights where people get screwed at the end. What's to say Dean Ambrose flips the bird and flips Nia Jax off and walks off on his last day and doesn't do it?
Yeah. Dude, if I was...
It would be first time.
I see so much creative in this, and I really wish this would be a shoot that worked itself. What's the old saying? A work that turns itself into a shoot or whatever. I just wish that somewhere along this departure of Ambrose, maybe they give him another offer and it's higher or more creative freedom, and then they strike a deal. And I know this isn't going to happen, so I'm playing fantasy here. That's what us fans do. But something happens and they keep him, and then they really work out a big angle. Then maybe something interesting could happen, like with CM Punk. But I just feel today WWE does not allow that. They don't want their stars to be bigger than them. They just want to have a bunch of medium stars. They don't want to have a Hogan or an Austin anymore.
I'm going to give you some reality, and I'm going to throw this out there, and you could say, Vito Labrasa, you are a genius. I'm Dean Ambrose. I got the match of the night, Nia Jax. I flip off the crowd, flip Vince McMahon, do this, do that. Out comes Vince. All right, you son of a bitch. You want to ruin my show? That's fine. You either lay down in that ring and go through this match, or your wife is fired on the spot. What do you do? Legit shoot, what do you do?
Oh, if I'm Dean Ambrose, you leave and you take your wife with you, and you find greener pastures.
Now,
that's if I'm Ambrose.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
You talk about your wife, her career, her job, her well-being. Now you're not talking about your career no more. Now you're interfering in your wife's career, where when you go home, if you don't lay down, she is going to be on divorce court. It's going to get hot, heated.
So you got to lay down to lay down. Is that what you're saying? Get
What
it?
you're talking about?
I get what you're saying.
Real life situation, which I hope the WWE is listening to and make this real. Dean Ambrose, I love your career. I love your heart. I love your passion with the thing. You flip off the WWE, tell them, everybody would want to do, because everybody has done it once in a while. Now you're playing with a loaded gun. This is a new era. Now everybody's wife is in the business, and everybody before, nobody's wife used to be in the business. So there's no ammunition. There's no revenge. There's no real life scenario here where we can really dig in. And you talk about not doing the job, but if you don't do the job, your wife's career is over. What do you do, David?
So you think Dean at that point would go back into the ring and lay down to finish through the match if Vince did that and put him in that scenario just so Renee had her? Like, to me, I get exactly what you're saying. And so now you're trying to conflict me here. You're trying to change my mind. I see what you're doing there. But just say that happened exactly how you painted it. I have to think Dean and Renee have already talked about their future, and there are more opportunities than there were 5 and 10 years ago with billionaires putting their money into the business. I would think that if that situation happened, they would just have to make eye contact and they would know exactly what to do. And I think Dean would walk out and Renee would support him, because I'm sure that they've already been given. I know you can't break contracts or negotiate while you're contracted, but somebody has had to have said, Dean, Renee, we'll take you over here with our new wrestling promotion. That's interesting, Vito, and that's awesome creative. You imagine how big that would be, blowing up on Twitter, on social media, on the internet, if something like that happened. And why? Why can't Vince McMahon, why can't these promoters and these wrestlers be smart enough to kayfabe something like that? Because somebody's going to rat out, oh, by the way, they're going to run this angle. We should see something like that, Vito, and think it's real. But today, the only real stuff we get is the actual real stuff.
Now, all right.
Worm rabbit hole. That's what you opened up here.
All right. Now let's move on to my man, Brock Lesnar. He's not, from what I understand, he is not going to be in the next pay-per-view. I am going to say it like this, people, they have run out of people for him to fight. They have run out of angles for him to do. Bobby Lashley now fighting with Finn Balor. Bobby Lashley will never see Brock Lesnar. It's not going to happen. Not unless it is going to be a last-minute flip where they're going to throw him in there. But Bobby Lashley, here he is coming back, and they tried to get him over, you think he's got the height, and it just, that charisma problem he has, as great an athlete as he is, he just can't crack that oomph to be on that superstar level. Brock Lesnar not being on the next pay-per-view, from what I understand. Does it hurt the product that the champ is not there, or does that increase the value of Brock Lesnar?
I think it increases the value for Brock, but it hurts the title belt, which is a prop, you know. The thing is, it makes Brock seem like this bigger deal to casual fans. Wrestling fans and smart marks hate it. They hate a guy like Lesnar holding that title and not being there to defend it. They want their boy Rollins to go to WrestleMania, which is when Brock will wrestle next, and beat him for it. Because for some strange reason, these fans want to see that title on TV every week. Why? So they can complain about how Seth Rollins is being booked afterwards. So I think it makes Brock a bigger deal. Vito, you and I both know he left WWE, right, to go pursue a football career. It didn't work out. He then went to Ultimate Fighting, and I don't, that one steroid accusation, whatever happened there, he still won a championship in real fighting. He's got more wins than losses in real fighting. So to me, he's legitimized with a casual fan base, with an MMA fan base. So I totally think it's okay, but the fact is, Vito, they got too many shows. And that's why you're not seeing Brock, who gets paid big bucks for small amount appearances, not showing up at Elimination Chamber, at Fastlane. I'm fine with it, right? Because if people hate Brock that much and want to see him lose a title because he's never around, that makes him a legitimate heel, in my opinion. They want to see the baby more beat him. So I personally am okay with Brock having the title and barely being there because I think it raises his stock as a villain, is to be hated. Problem is, does Vince McMahon have the balls to take the title off of him and run with a new hero?
There's nobody to put the title on.
Oh, I know it. We're going to get Seth Rollins because Roman's sick. You know,
nobody wants Seth Rollins because he's not. Because when he's a babyface, he's boring. Unless he's back with the Authority, that's the only reason you're going to watch it. Now, swinging the pendulum around to the women, what I understand, sources and little birdies tell me, the McMahon family has invited Becky Lynch to Raw after the attack on Stephanie McMahon. Why would you invite somebody to Raw unless you're going to fire them, suspend them, take away their shot?
I have so much to say about Becky. Do you? I mean, I'll let you get all your stuff in first. By the way, my written article is finally up, and it touches a lot about this situation with Becky Lynch. Oh, I was on fire when I was writing it, man.
I think this is going to be a great angle. I hope, and they're going to try to power play with her. And if she winds up fighting for the McMahons, either you fight for us or you fight against us and out of the company or you lose your job. I think it'll be good. It'll put more pressure on her to be a badass heel. And, you know, with all the Ronda Rousey thing, which I thought was a lot of great controversy for 2 weeks, where people were in her womb and decorating her as a one and done, 1 year and out, going to go start a family. And people like Meltzy, you know, making his predictions and everybody getting hot. But, you know, this makes a good scenario, and this makes interesting fight notes for WrestleMania to bring possibly the McMahons in the limelight at WrestleMania, having something to do with the main event, where they position themselves to get the biggest payouts and get the biggest paydays.
So let me ask you this. The fans, these diehards, all I hear, all they want, it better be Becky and Ronda one-on-one. Becky better go over Ronda at Mania. We pay our money. We buy your network, this and that. We want this. Why do I have a feeling that WWE's direction with this Becky injury is to pull her out of the match, suspend her, right, because she hasn't been medically cleared per the storyline. Stephanie's going to say, well, we need someone to face Ronda. We have a perfectly suitable opponent, Charlotte Flair. And then, of course, Charlotte gets put in Becky's spot, which this is what I'm anticipating. And then, of course, Becky gets cleared. She gets an attorney. They continue the angle. She gets back into the match. There's your triple threat match. Vito, a year ago, people thought the rumor, you know, I don't know where these leaks come from, but the rumor was Charlotte and Ronda. Somewhere along the way, the CM Punk cult-like, the Stone Cold Steve Austin comparisons with Becky blew up. WWE noticed. Now Becky's in this spot. What do you think they're going to do the one-on-one at Mania? Or do you think they're going to do the Charlotte Flair because of the name power, interjected to give the fans some doubt that Becky's going to win? Because with Charlotte in the mix, now you got more scenarios, more possibilities. And I say the key lies with Charlotte Flair. If Becky truly is on Stone Cold's level, nobody's going to be up there. But if Becky is a martyr like CM Punk was for a couple of years, close to Stone Cold's level, she'll get the one-on-one match with Ronda. But if Charlotte's put into the match, if they change it, make it a triple, Becky's obviously not moving the needle enough with attendance and ratings, even though the cult-like following's cheering her. I'm interested to see how this is playing out because I want to see how the diehards are going to react.
Erroneous. I'm going to tell you
valid points. Go ahead.
Because you have missed the whole boat. I'm going to school all the people, the millions and millions of people who listen to Get in Color. People, look at the scenario. Look at the way they're putting this together. Read it. Write it. You heard it here first on Get in Color. The McMahons bringing Becky Lynch to Raw. Here they are. You want to play with us? No. Who's going to play ball with the McMahons and turn heel? Ronda Rousey. You're going to get your match, but it's going to be Ronda Rousey as a heel, teaming with the McMahons against Becky Lynch, making her the all-time favorite babyface, and do the switcheroo where they are going to give you the match you wanted, not with the circumstances you wanted, but you talk about going full-blown, full throttle, big-time heel Ronda Rousey. It increases her captive audience 50 to 150% over the top with the McMahons backing, going against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, with Charlotte possibly jockeying somehow in the background to encourage her friend and help her friend. It gets all three girls over, and you have a happy ending where Becky Lynch wins.
Yeah, and that's a good scenario, Vito. I definitely do like that because Ronda, I think, is very uncomfortable as a babyface, and to have the McMahons on her side, she's a heel. They can help talk for her a little bit more. Becky is already that firecracker that the fans want to see. I like that scenario. So in this instance, I'm going to say that's a good plan B to my plan A. I still feel like somehow they want Charlotte in the mix. But again, there's another brand. Charlotte can wrestle for the other title, so she doesn't have to be in this. But it's just, I like doubt. I like having the fans, when they assume something is going to happen, right? Oh, we know they got to do this. Becky's going to go over Ronda, no problem. I like doubt. So that's why I wrote my column. I said Charlotte could really be the key here because I want to see fans wonder, oh my God, they're not going to put Becky over. I don't know. See, if I worked with Vince McMahon and wrote for him, I would love to give him all those scenarios, Vito, like yours, like mine. The question is, at the end of the day, what's Vince McMahon going to do, right? It's still his baby. And does he like burning the fans, more often than catering, giving them what they want? I don't know what the answer is. Seems like he burns them more often.
Just keep dreaming, young fan, young friend, young colleague of mine. Just keep on dreaming and give your fantasy rumors and all your fantasy people hope. Because when it comes to one-on-one booking and wrestling psychology, you got to think beyond and above the hat. You got to take that little story and bring it and twist it around to where people don't expect the unexpected, where you got to just shock people into what you're going to believe. You would never think the All-American girl Ronda Rousey would ever turn heel, but everybody forget, she was a badass and she was a heel when she was in UFC. She had the swag. She could beat anybody up. She could back up a talk until the time when she got her ass kicked. And that's when just humble pie came through, where she hit her face and she was going through airports. And then when she got her ass kicked again, that was see ya, wouldn't want to be ya, and she left UFC altogether.
Hey, and remember, Vito, this could all lead to Ronda Rousey has her stable of the 4 MMA horsewomen, and we know WWE has their little Becky, Charlotte, Bayley, and Sasha. Could this all boil over into a big feud that has been rumored and talked about for quite some time? Whether they end up delivering that or not remains to be seen. Is Ronda going to stay with the company? That, to me, screams Survivor Series, obviously, with this style of 4-on-4. But, I mean, interesting, Vito. I mean, how else do you make a bland, boring product any interesting? You have to make it interesting yourself because they might not have the creative team to do it.
Nah, I hear you, man. All right, David, listen, Mr. Stalwart, I want you to give me your plugs. Plug away, tell them where we can read this great column from, where we can find you, what you got going on, and who do you want to be like when you want to grow up.
All right, well, I'll answer that last. So follow me on Twitter at @NoDQ_Virtue. NoDQ.com is where I have Virtue's Rage, and I just posted this column. It's It's a very interesting column. Go on that site. Go under the opinion section. If you go to my Twitter, Vito, everything is there. I retweet it. I pin the tweet. But again, at @NoDQ_Virtue on Twitter. That's pretty much my plugs. But who I could be like if I grew up? Myself. My father. That's who I would want to be like. I know you wanted me to say you probably, but no, man.
No, man. It's all right. No, that's
You're
all
like
right.
looking in the mirror right now, so I can't say that. So
You probably got a Vince Russo. I'm a Russo guy shirt on underneath that Big Vito thing anyway. So.
well, I think I could.
I know you're a Vince
Be
Russo.
like, I could be like Russo, but I think I could be better.
Wow.
And I like, dude, I took a class from Vince, right? Vince taught me some of the tricks of writing in a seminar. So I like him, but don't you have to, isn't the student always supposed to want to be better than the teacher? I don't know. That's just me. Whatever.
If that's the case, and you're trying to be better than me, I've been teaching you since the day I met you, so I got a competition, man.
No, I never said you. I just said Vince. All right.
All right, guys. Listen, thank you very much for stopping in. It's the Big Vito brand. I'm going to cut this off right now and say go to thebigvitobrand.com, press the purple button, and I'm sure the voice of reason will chime in at the end of this to give my plugs. I hope everybody had a great time, a great segment, and a great happy new year. Thank you for stopping by. This is Big Vito LaGrasso signing off. Peace, dog.
Yes, Big Vito. If everybody wants to check us out online, we are at BigVitoBrand.com. You can also find us on social media on the Big Vito Brand and also Reality Capital T Spelling. We are on Alexa and Fire devices with our podcast. You can go and check us out under Flash Briefing and set us up for a daily Flash Briefing, or you could just look under podcast and type in the Big Vito Brand. Also go to anchor.fm/the Big Vito Brand, click the purple support button, help us out, support our podcast. We would love to have you on board with the Big Vito Brand. Go ahead, Big Vig.